All right, we ready to light this candle? Okay, good morning. I'm realizing now with the, 12, 13 of you are in here that I probably didn't name my presentation something cool like, solving the future with AI and magic and all that stuff, but I tend to be a realistic kind of guy. And I named this after one of my favorite movies, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, because as a CISO, that's really what it feels like I'm being faced with. Our SOC guys over here, you probably have post-traumatic stress disorder for the same exact reasons, okay? And what this presentation is not a Zscaler product pitch, okay? We sit on a tremendous amount of data through all of our customers, 450 billion transactions daily. And really the goal of this presentation is to talk about those mega trends, talk about what we can learn from the data we see, and how does that shape what we're trying to do in the future, all right? Most of the opinions are my own. I built these slides myself, so if they're garbage, I apologize. And almost all the images I made with AI because you'll see I like weird stuff. All right, myself. This is about me. Nobody cares. The fun fact here is I'm pretending to be from Canada until after the US elections are done. I'm based in Stockholm, but if anybody asked for the rest of the day, I'm from Toronto, eh? All right, so let's start with a basic premise, all right? The fundamental problem in cybersecurity isn't technical. I talk to a lot of customers every day, talking to CISOs, talking to CTOs, CIOs. The biggest problem is a general lack of alignment with the business, okay? You've got the tech people and you've got the business, but often they're at cross purposes. And because I'm on stage and I can talk about whatever I want, don't be that guy, right? Let's try to figure out how we can align those two things together. And I want to start at kind of a high level and then we'll drill down. But I'm just going to build out the first ones here. The mega trends that I see that are impacting what we do, all right? All of your businesses, all of the projects that you are working on are being impacted by these mega trends in one way or another, right? First one, 40% of the world's population is going to vote this year, right? How many of you have seen an uptick in maybe attacks coming from, we'll say, certain geopolitical entities on the back end of this? I know in the customers I see, there are certain countries that I won't name because I don't want to get kidnapped, but that are doing a lot of increased attacks and even more subtle things as well. Main sequence AI development. I want to point this out because every vendor here who's talking about AI is talking about a single branch on the tree of AI, right? We think about ChatGPT, we think about Copilot and those kind of things. That's just the GPT part of that. Main sequence AI development, the real things that are happening outside of just fancy machine learning. There's a lot of stuff happening that is influencing the decisions and choices we make. Quantum computing and other tech disruptors. I'm a CISO, so privacy, data sovereignty. Half of the conversations I have in a week are, hey, how can we trust you, you evil American company, to not send all our data to the CIA and that kind of stuff. AI on offense. I'll talk more about this later, but in essence, I think a lot of the AI tools that are being developed now can give an unsophisticated attacker near nation-state level capabilities, and they don't even have to be that smart to be able to do it. AI in defense, of course. ESG, sustainability, I think that's making a huge impact. The fact that Microsoft right now is pouring more concrete and steel just to build more data centers to power the previous two ones, I think is really interesting when we look. Anybody care about ESG? Well, we all do because we love the planet, but I won't belabor that point. And then, of course, how many of you have post-traumatic stress when these things come on stage? Anybody? 2 hands for me, right? So these things are also shaping most of the conversations and the decisions our businesses are making. So when I look at the trends and what we see in our cloud, see a lot of things. Now, I only have 30 minutes, so I can't talk about all these things. I'm going to focus on the first two because I think they're interesting and I got cool examples to show you guys. And we see a lot of that in our cloud. All right, first thing I want to point out as we go through here is when we think of ransomware and we think of ransomware attacks, and we see a lot of those in our cloud. We think of like the skull that pops up and says, you've been locked up and all of that stuff, right? Anybody else not think of that? And the key point here is that attackers are smart. They upgrade their capabilities just like we do. And we need to stop thinking of ransomware as encryption because they're skipping the hard part, right? More on that in a second. But what we're seeing because of the change in tactics is a near 40% growth in ransomware attacks that don't even really do ransomware. Double extortion attacks. Hey, we pay you once. Can we get paid again? That's always fun. And the single biggest industry vertical that we see is manufacturing, right? I have some theories as to why. Sure. It's not, we see some, but not as high. It's still kind of a developing area of that. Don't pay the bad guys. And ideally, hopefully, if I can go fast enough through my slides, we can get to what I think we can do about all this, okay? If you guys have questions, by the way, I'll be at the booth here. This data is available in a ransomware report that we have and publish. If you come by, I'll make sure you get a copy. How many of you work in manufacturing? Or at least one of the top 5, right? This is available in that report, and we see a lot of these kind of things happening, and it's very specifically targeted for a lot of different reasons, but primarily because they tend to be complicated environments where things like cloud security, upgrades, that kind of stuff. How many of you saw the article like a month ago that a lot of the trains in Germany still run Windows 3.1? Anybody know when Windows 3.1 was released? 1992, right? I just felt really old because I remember that. All right. So, again, I love AI. So I typed into the Bing image creator thing, ransomware attacker living off the land, and that's what it spat out. I just thought it was really funny. So the ransomware attackers are shifting to encryptionless attacks, right? And instead of trying to get in and trying to get 80% or whatever percent of your estate ready, hitting the encrypt button, they just break in, live off the land, try to gain access, move there, steal as much data they can. And then they say, hey, we ran this pen test. This is a real email received by a customer after something happened, right? There's some interesting things here. Hey, we did this pen test for you. We got your data, right? We found, here's everything we did. Here's our nice little report of things that we did for you. And there's a couple of fun things that I love here. My favorite one is where they give them a compliment about how nice their network was. Hey, your network is awesome, by the way. We could transfer 300 gigs of data a day. Thanks so much. You made our jobs easier. And if you would like us to delete that data, just pay us for the pen test we did for you. Not going to ask if you guys have seen this because nobody ever admits that. With NIS2 and DORA, we see a lot of supply chain and third-party focus. And here's what this actually means, right? They're targeting the software vendors. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and they're targeting those. And so if we look at some of the attacks that we've seen, right? MoveIt was a bad weekend for many of us, I think. But here's the email that they sent, and I realize it's a bit of an eye chart here, right? My favorite thing, they say, hey, if you have this, pay up or do this. But at the bottom, they say, by the way, if you're a government, we also follow the GDPR. and will delete your data, don't worry, because even they don't want to end up dealing with the EU legislation. This, I think, is an interesting change in tactic. It shows a certain sort of awareness. It shows a sophistication, and they're doing all of this without actually encrypting anything. All right, this is where I'm a vendor, so I'm required by law to mention AI at least twice in every presentation, or I lose my job, all right? And there are two different views about AI, right? If you're like me and you've got ADHD and everything's kind of chaotic and a Looney Tunes commercial in your head, I see this. Hey, I want to wake up. I want my computer to say, hey, James, here's the 3 things you need to get done today so your wife doesn't divorce you. And then we got, I'm guessing you guys over here, the robots are taking over, doom and gloom, right? This is where it's going to go wrong. And I'll say, how many of you agree with this statement? How many of you agree with this statement? How many of you don't like raising hands when asked? Both of those statements are true at the same time, right? What we see, the overhype, is based around GPTs and this one branch of AI. But what we see in terms of the data we collect on our cloud and the conversations we have with customers, and if you look at like Tim Berners-Lee, where he's like the World Wide Web is going to be the greatest thing ever. I forget the exact quote, trying to go fast. I think that AI is actually not just ChatGPT so we can cheat on our homework, but mainstream AI, the things that are being worked on, are probably going to be the biggest things that happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Both of those statements are true. And we ran a report on this based on what we're seeing, because there's a bit of a dichotomy. Some organizations are already adopting AI and replacing certain functions. I see a lot of coding being done with the support of AI. A lot of we've all been stuck trying to talk to somebody, and Samantha is actually a bot, and you're like, just give me my refund, Samantha, right? There's good things and bad things to everything. But we're seeing almost a 600% growth in transactions across our cloud. Keep in mind, 450 billion transactions daily. That's a huge amount, right? Of course, ChatGPT is there, but most of the traffic is generated by manufacturing, which I think is really, really interesting. And this is also available in a report if you guys need this for future, right? And here's the interesting bit here. They're generating the most, with financial insurance blocking the most, but also creating number 2. So we see the dichotomy here. We as architects, as defenders of networks, we don't quite know what to do with this technology yet, right? We want to play with it, we want to use it, we see the benefits, but it's terrifying, all right? How many of you have asked a vendor how they handle your AI data and what they do with it, how they're learning it? If nobody raises your hand, you're in the minority, because as a CISO, I get that question 5 times a day, right? And then we also see this kind of AI for bad. The reason I put this up, how many of you have seen this article? Here's my data point on this. This actually came from a single source that was not verified. I don't know that this actually happened, but we were all, myself included, ready to believe it because of that dichotomy in how we're thinking about AI as an as defenders of networks. But we're already starting to see these attack techniques being leveraged in live attacks within customers and prospects in our cloud. And here's sort of where I think the future of attacks will go, right? I can use Gen AI to write emails that don't look like they were used with Google Translate. I'm waiting for something like Maltego to just say, hey, I want to attack Dell, right? And then it goes out, finds likely targets, figures out he's into kayaks and kittens, creates a custom email with a custom link, custom malware, sends it to him, boom, I'm in, right? Easy enough. Being able to AI power automatic, AI is very good at generating code. Let's just go ahead and write me some exploits once we take those limiters off, right? There are strains of polymorphic malware that use crypto that nobody understands because it was generated by AI and it won't tell us how. Scary stuff. Then being able to escalate privilege automatically. But the interesting part here is where they, run off with the stuff, right? Rather than encrypting everything, setting something in play in the environment that looks for specific data, that learns, hey, this data is important to this business, which is well within the capabilities of existing GPT technology today, and then trickling that out until they have enough that they can make their demand. This is what I think we're going to be fighting against the next year. And my guess is that before the end of the year, we're going to see something like this hit the news where this has happened. Awesome, James. Thanks for that. I feel so much better. Everything's great. Cool. What do we do now? All right. So this is my happy network. And I don't think there's a perfect solution. Okay? There is not. Because we're fighting infinite number of robots for everything, everywhere, all at once, right? Zero trust is the best option that we have in our bag of tricks today, all right? To future-proof, to defend, to control blast radius, all of that. So here's some thoughts about zero trust from yours truly, right? If it's on the internet, you've already lost. Don't put stuff on the internet unless it needs to be on the internet. There's no such thing as true zero trust, right? It's theoretical. What we're really looking at is controlling identity as the perimeter and trying to contain the blast radius when something happens, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You can't do zero trust at the network layer unless you want to run Cat5 cable across everything, use 802.1, whatever's popular in your organization, right? Architecture matters more today than it ever has in the history of this organization. The architectures and the protocols we use were created in the 60s in California by hippies. By default, they believe in free love and data sharing, man. Right? And it's been kicking our collective asses for like 40 years. That architecture, right, for scalability, for security, for flexibility, is the thing that allows us to develop solutions for the organizations we work for that can achieve all those business goals. And I talked about it at the beginning, business alignment is key. How many of you have been in a meeting recently where somebody has talked about zero trust and they didn't say why it was important, right? Or, hey, we're going to go do this project. Why? I don't know, boss said so, right? You don't have to raise your hands in case your boss is in the room, but I know you have. But what are we going to do? Well, I believe in the scalability of the cloud. I believe in the flexibility that the cloud provides us, right? Whether it's Zscaler or something else, it should be Zscaler. I got 3 kids. They're all daughters. The oldest turned 15 last week. My life is very expensive right now, so please buy Zscaler if you can. But if not, anything else will do. Don't reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create your own security standards, right? Grab something off NIST, leverage that, implement that, and follow that, right? Whatever standard you follow that standard. It's like a workout program, all right? It doesn't matter which one you do. Super strongman, big booty goddess, both real programs, by the way. I've done both, true story. And as long as you follow that program, you're gonna see results, right? You might need to adapt and change, but just stick to the program. Start with your biggest risk first. What's your biggest risk? Probably users, because users do stupid user things, right? They're out there connecting to shady Wi-Fi networks at conferences, places in hotels, all that. Usually starting with that. But maybe in your organization, it's your IoT network, right? Whatever that biggest risk. And if that goes down, the business stops, start there. Make sure that you're building the teams. If you haven't done Zero Trust, having the teams, having the knowledge in play is really, really important. And I realize that's easy to put on a slide and easy to say, and talent is hard to find. That's why it's important to do that at the beginning of the project. And address the cultural barriers. And if you're used to having firewalls and being able to go into the basement and look at the blinky lights, right? Saying, hey, we're gonna move all this stuff out to the cloud is scary and foreign. And you guys probably realize this by now, but I'm originally from the States. So what I say is go find the fights, but that sounds very American. So I say address the cultural barriers. Is that more European, right? All right, so in a digital world, all the things we've talked about, all the kind of threat landscape, those big kind of mega trends that we see, cyber is a quality of all of those things. Our job is to filter all those things in and figure out what the most bang for our buck, what the best thing that we can do to increase security, but also enable the rest of the business or whatever the goals of your organization are. And it's the largest domain, and it's growing fast, right? Every time we create a new problem, we create 5 new solutions, we create 5 new job titles, 5 new experts, right? It's usually the best thing you can do is put 2FA in, but hey. So I'm going to end here with kind of 5 pieces of advice that I've seen based on talking to customers and kind of what I've summed up from the presentation here, okay? The first piece of advice: deal with what happens, right? Not now, but prepare for the future. What do I mean there? I mean, everybody's created a network plan, everybody's created a deployment diagram, and they say, in 5 years, we're gonna be in this awesome place. And then budget happens, teams change, something changes in the business, blah, 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 right? So make that plan, right? You should be making a plan to have some sort of zero trust implementation on all your networks. Given what the threat landscape is gonna look like when I present here next year, it's the best possible option for you. But that doesn't mean forget everything that's going on today, right? We gotta be flexible, so make sure you're building that flexibility in. Number 2, all right? Place your bets. Where do you guys think, right? Where's the research gonna take us? Where's your company gonna go? What are the new business streams that you're trying to support? And what are the asks of the people that we support gonna be? Do that research, and don't be afraid to take risks. The worst thing that you can do is half-ass a zero trust implementation, right? We're completely zero trust. Yeah, we have a zero trust project, but everything's available from people who are on iPads, on random Wi-Fi, and we don't actually check. They have login and password. Take those risks to make those bold decisions and force that. It's the only way to make things happen. Be like Apple. How many of you were pissed off when Apple pulled headphone jacks out of their phones? How many of you have headphones that are wired today? One guy. And they're probably like the big ones, aren't they? Yeah. Audiophiles. See, I'm half deaf, so it doesn't really matter. I listen to punk music too. As long as it's loud, I'm cool. All right? Advice number 3. Look to the past. Even with this change, we can look to the past to predict the future, all right? All that I see with the malware and attack trends and the techniques that they're using are not new techniques. They're old tactics, old playbooks, but they're being done with newer technology to make it easier and more effective, right? I'm old enough to have used dial-up internet the first time I connected to the internet. All right, I know I don't look or act it, but trust me, my knees hurt. And I got, my first malware experience was a dialer that I downloaded from somewhere that racked up like $500 in phone bills by calling toll numbers. That's where I started getting interested in security. And then 15 years later, there's Android malware that's doing the exact same thing. dialing calls silently in the background and upping your phone bill, right? Same tactic, same thing. And if you guys look at those, you'll see that the attackers are just as lazy as we are, right? They want to go home and hang out with their kids who are presumably not evil attackers yet. So even with all this change, think about how AI and all the different things that I've talked about can be leveraged using old tactics. Prepare now. Now we should all be, as defenders of networks, we should all be preparing for that attack chain that I showed earlier, right? For me, that means zero trust, modularization of code, all the things that we've put off, that project that you guys, oh, one sunny day we're gonna get to that, it's gonna make a real big change, right? Plan for those now, because I suspect we're gonna be really busy over the next year, year and a half, and not have the time to do it. Final piece of advice, build a community in defense, whether that's internally to your organization or in a larger kind of working group across that organization, right? Network here in this room. Somebody here knows something that you don't and can help you in the future, right? Don't be a spectator. This is something that you can own, all right? I also think that we tend to think of red teams and blue teams when we're talking about kind of testing our attack. There are so many more colors of team these days, right? I'm particularly interested in yellow teaming, white teaming, and purple teaming. I still haven't found a great use for, but if you have any questions about any of those, come find me. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. All right, so thank you so much. Hopefully you guys have had something that wasn't a product pitch. Hopefully you've had something that at least provoked a little bit of thought and gave you some ammunition or some kind of creativity to go think about how you're gonna solve that. I got like 3 minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, more than happy to take them at the time. I should not stand here. All right, cool. So if you want those white papers, hold on 1 second. If you want those white papers that I referenced, whether it's the ransomware or the AI ones, drop by the Zscaler booth. If you want to talk about any of the topics more in depth, come find me. There's only one James Tucker here, and I think we're all happy for that. Thank you so much.